If you are over 60 and your gut has been unsettled for longer than you honestly want to admit, the reason is probably not what you think. It is not how much you are eating. It is not whether you skipped your walk this week. New research confirms it is 5 specific foods that look like health on the label, that are quietly tearing down the one system your body depends on for everything else. One of them is almost certainly in your refrigerator right now. And the one I have saved for last is the one your doctor has almost certainly never mentioned. My name is Master Takeshi Okamura. For 60 years, I have walked the mountain paths above Kawama, north of Kyoto, where my family has served this village across many generations. My grandfather, a healer trained in the old practice of Kampo, watched the gut's inner life with his hands for 80 years. He told me when I was a young man, all suffering in the body finds its beginning in the belly. The researchers in their laboratories have spent a generation arriving at the same conclusion. But here is what those researchers have confirmed that the standard clinic appointment almost never explains. After 60, the body's beneficial gut bacterial population does not slowly decline. It falls off a cliff. Studies tracking gut health in adults past 60 have found that the bacterial community protecting the gut wall can drop by close to 50% from what it was at 40. 50%. The wall the body depends on to decide what belongs inside and what does not is in most people walking around right now roughly half of what it once was. My grandfather called this the thinning of the inner gate. The laboratories now call it dysbiosis-driven mucosal vulnerability. The name is different. The observation is the same one he made with his hands across 4 decades of mountain practice. 5 foods are accelerating that thinning. Each one works through the same mechanism, and the last one on this list is doing more damage than the other 4 combined. Stay with me to the end, dear friend, because each piece of this teaching builds on the one before it, and the final piece is where everything we discussed today arrives at a clear direction. Now let us begin. The gut's inner lining is not a simple pipe. Think of it as fine silk stretched across a frame. The beneficial bacteria living in that lining produce compounds that keep the weave of that silk tight and that signal the immune system to remain alert. When the bacterial population is healthy, the silk holds. When those bacteria are lost, the weave loosens. Things pass through that were never meant to cross. Organisms that a healthy gut would have expelled before they could settle find a welcome they were never supposed to receive. 5 foods tear at that silk, 1 meal at a time. And after 60, when the silk is already half of what it was, there is very little to spare. The 5th food is bagged, pre-washed salad greens. I know the response this produces. Salad is healthy, and most of the time it is. But here is what the bag is not telling you. The label that says pre-washed does not mean what most people believe it means. These greens travel through harvesting equipment, processing facilities, and cold storage across long distances before they reach your refrigerator. A protozoan parasite called Cryptosporidium parvum, which attaches to the intestinal wall and disrupts the gut's ability to absorb fluid properly, moves through commercial washing systems at rates that would trouble most people to know. In the old mountain kitchen, every leaf was washed by the person who would eat it, moments before the meal. That habit existed because the elders understood what happened when it was skipped. Wash your produce yourself. Fill a bowl with cold water. Submerge the leaves. Move them with your hands. Drain the water and repeat. A small spoonful of white vinegar in the wash water is something the traditional kitchen used for generations as a practical addition to this ritual. It takes 90 additional seconds. Those 90 seconds carry real weight. But bagged greens are not the most common problem in the daily diet. The next food on this list is something many families eat several times each week, and almost no one thinks to question it. The 4th food is processed pork products. Deli slices, cold cuts, breakfast sausage, cooked at low temperature, cured pork eaten without heat. The tradition I was raised in held careful views on pork, and those views had a clear biological foundation. Trichinella spiralis larvae lie encysted in muscle tissue, dormant until they reach the digestive system. Tachynia solium egg cysts behave similarly. Full confirmed internal heat addresses both. Thin deli slices briefly microwaved. Sausage still pink at the center. These do not reach what the tradition has always required. Cook pork to a full confirmed internal temperature. Remove deli meats from your daily table. Replace them with freshly cooked chicken, home-prepared turkey, or hard-boiled eggs. But even if processed pork has never been part of your regular meals, this next food may still be reaching the gut's interior in a form it cannot manage. The third food is raw or lightly cooked shellfish. Oysters, clams, and mussels eaten raw or barely warmed. A parasitic organism called Anisakis simplex penetrates the gastric lining, the way a thorn works deeper once it is embedded in the skin. After 60, when the gut's mucosal protection has already thinned naturally, the body cannot manage what it once handled at a younger age. The tradition of coastal Japan has always required full heat for shellfish. That requirement was not casual, and it was not without reason. Move to fully steamed preparations, or shift to wild-caught salmon and mackerel instead. The second food will likely surprise you more than the previous three. The second food is raw freshwater fish. River fish prepared as sushi, lightly smoked trout. Ceviche made from freshwater sources. A flatworm called Clonochus sinensis makes its home in the bile ducts and causes slow chronic inflammation there. River fish carry this organism at rates that ocean fish do not. In the tradition I practice, freshwater fish was always fully cooked, no exceptions, regardless of preparation or season. Apply full heat to all river fish until the flesh flakes cleanly. Now 4 foods have been named, and I want to tell you about a patient of mine before we discuss the 5th. Dorothy was 67 years old, a retired school librarian from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She came to me carrying a fatigue so steady she described it as walking through sand every single afternoon. Her joints moved with a restless, shifting ache that never settled in one place. 3 physicians had reviewed her case and called her blood work normal. What was overlooked was her daily habit, a bag of pre-washed spinach each morning, and deli turkey and processed ham in her sandwiches at lunch, a pattern she had held for nearly 4 years. We removed those 2 foods and moved her toward the replacements I had already described. Within 6 weeks, her afternoon energy had improved, and her bloating had largely resolved. About 30% better, she told me. Her mornings were clearer, but something remained, a residual heaviness in the abdomen, a fatigue that lifted somewhat but never fully cleared. In our 8th week, she looked at me and asked, "Master Takeshi, why is there still something holding on?" And that question led me to the most important understanding in this entire teaching. Here is what the food changes alone do not address. After 60, the gut has already lost close to half of its beneficial bacterial population. Removing the harmful food stops the damage from getting worse. But the bacteria that were lost while those foods were present over months and years do not simply return on their own. The gut wall needs active rebuilding, not just the removal of what was destroying it. The old healers of Kurama understood this as the difference between clearing the field and planting it again. Modern researchers now use 3 terms for this process. Probiotics, the living bacteria the gut needs. Prebiotics, the fiber that feeds and sustains those bacteria so they can survive and multiply. And postbiotics, the specific compounds those bacteria produce once they are established, the true molecular messengers that calm the gut lining and keep the immune system oriented correctly. Think of it this way. You cannot scatter seeds into dry, exhausted soil and expect a harvest. The soil must be prepared, the seeds must be alive, and what those seeds produce once they are growing must be actively present. Without all 3 working together, the gut cannot complete its own restoration. This is why Dorothy's improvement plateaued at 30%. The harmful foods were gone, but the rebuilding had not yet begun. We will return to Dorothy's story in a moment. If this teaching is reaching you, I want to pause and invite you to subscribe to this channel. Many viewers tell me they watched several videos before realizing they had not yet subscribed. I cover material like this regularly, and a subscription takes only a moment. Now, before I name the fifth food, I want to say something about it directly. This food is the one the other four cannot compete with. It touches every system in the body. It accelerates the mucosal damage I described earlier faster than anything else in the modern diet. And it is present in the daily meals of almost every adult past 60 in this country. My grandfather called it the sweetness that becomes sorrow. He watched it quietly destroy the gut's inner environment across 40 years of mountain practice. The fifth food, and the most important one on this list, is refined sugar and everything built from it. White sugar added to beverages, high fructose corn syrup in commercial sauces and condiments, sweetened yogurt, white bread that converts to simple sugar in the bloodstream within minutes of eating, packaged cookies and pastries, the daily unbroken stream of refined sugar that most adults in this country have consumed since childhood. Here is the mechanism, and I want to go deeper here than anywhere else in today's teaching. Refined sugar feeds a specific disruption in the gut called dysbiosis-mediated mucosal damage. Sugar-feeding bacteria multiply rapidly and crowd out the beneficial bacteria that maintain the gut's inner lining. They produce compounds that loosen the weave of that silk I described earlier. And what passes through a loosened gut wall includes the eggs and cysts of organisms that a healthy gut would have expelled before they could settle. The door that the other four foods hold open a crack. Refined sugar leaves fully unlocked. The aging reality here is more severe than with any other food on this list. After 70, the gut's mucosal lining thins naturally as part of aging. Decades of refined sugar laid on top of that natural thinning leave the barrier barely functional in many people by their mid-70s. The families of Kurama, who sweetened only with fermented plum and fruit in season, were, across 5 generations of observation, among the healthiest the mountain healers ever served. The laboratories are now measuring what those families lived out without a single scientific name for what they were doing. Let me tell you about Harold. He was 74 years old, a former postal worker from Savannah, Georgia. His mornings arrived with a dull abdominal rumble and a fog that settled into his thinking by noon. He moved slowly through each day, as if something was quietly drawing the energy out of him. A clinic told him this was simply his age. What was overlooked was 4 large glasses of sweet tea each day, and 50 years of commercial cookies and white sandwich bread at every meal. Over 4 weeks, we made gentle substitutions, small amounts of raw honey when sweetness was needed, whole grain sourdough in place of white bread, warm ginger water in place of the sweet tea. By week 6, his morning discomfort had reduced noticeably, and his fog was lighter. But like Dorothy, the improvement hit a ceiling. The inflammatory residue of decades of refined sugar does not clear through food changes alone. The gut's bacterial community needed active restoration, all 3 parts working together at once. Harold added the same gut support I am about to describe. By week 12, his morning fog had cleared. He told me, Master Takeshi, I thought this was just what 74 felt like. I had given up expecting anything different. Now, I want to share something I did not arrive at quickly. For much of my career, I was skeptical of supplement recommendations. The tradition I was trained in believed that food and practice should carry the weight of healing, and that products added from outside deserved very careful scrutiny. I held that skepticism for decades, but 60 years of sitting with patients, watching where food changes, alone produced only partial results, particularly in adults past 70, led me to look more carefully at the 3-part rebuilding problem: the bacteria, the fiber they need to survive, and the postbiotic compounds they produce, each element available in foods, but rarely all three consistently present in the amounts the aging gut requires to complete its own restoration. I examined several options across roughly 2 years. What I eventually came to recommend is BoochBod, a daily kombucha gummy, a gummy not a pill, which matters deeply to many of us who have taken enough capsules across a lifetime. It contains 2 clinically studied bacterial strains, lactose-spore and postbiotics LM1004, along with prebiotic fiber and active postbiotic compounds, all 3 parts of the restoration in a single daily source. It also contains dandelion root, which the healers of our mountain region have gathered and prepared for generations to support the liver and the body's interior terrain. More than 30,000 people take it daily. This is what Dorothy added in her 9th week. Within 3 more weeks, the residual heaviness she had been carrying was largely gone. This is what Harold was taking when his morning fog finally cleared. The food changes built the foundation. BoochBod completed the restoration that food changes alone could not finish. There is a 60-day guarantee. If you try it and feel no difference, the investment comes back to you. The link is in the description below this video whenever you are ready. And as always, speak with your doctor before starting any supplement, especially if you are managing a health condition or taking prescription medication. Now let me give you the 3 practical principles that carry this work forward, and the 3 mistakes that undo it. Cook with fresh ginger 3 times each week. The active compounds in raw ginger help maintain an intestinal environment that discourages the organisms we have discussed. A thumb-sized piece grated into warm water most mornings is not a dramatic remedy. It is a steady, quiet habit. Consistency in small practices outlasts the dramatic measures every time. Eat your largest meal at noon, not in the evening. The gut does its deepest repair work while the body rests at night. A heavy evening meal keeps digestion active during the hours the body most needs to restore itself. The elder healers of our village called the heavy evening stomach a restless one. There is real precision in that observation. Add 1 fermented food each day, a small bowl of miso soup, a spoonful of live culture yogurt without added sugar, or a few pieces of traditionally fermented vegetable. Small, consistent amounts reinforce what the beneficial bacteria are already working to maintain. Regularity here matters far more than quantity. 3 mistakes undo this progress faster than almost anything else. The first mistake is removing all 5 foods in the same week. The motivation is completely understandable, but the gut is a living system. Sweeping changes all at once can produce temporary discomfort that leads people to stop before any benefit arrives. Remove 1 food at a time over several weeks. Let the system find its footing before the next change. The second mistake is replacing refined sugar with artificial sweeteners. Aspartame and saccharin disrupt gut bacterial balance in ways that exchange one problem for a quieter one. Small amounts of raw honey, ripe fruit, or real maple syrup are far sounder as daily replacements. The third mistake is washing produce once and considering it done. Fill a bowl, submerge the produce completely, agitate it with your hands, drain the water, and repeat. The second wash removes what the first wash only loosened. This adds 90 seconds. Those 90 seconds carry real weight. My friend, let me speak plainly as we arrive at the close. The 5 foods on this list are not exotic or obscure. They are ordinary. They have been in most kitchens for decades. That is precisely why they have done so much damage quietly. Bagged pre-washed greens, processed pork, raw shellfish, raw freshwater fish, and above all, the refined sugar that the modern diet delivers in an unbroken daily stream. Every change I have named today points toward the same thing. The mornings ahead of you, the ones where you wake and your belly is quiet and your mind arrives clear, the ones where you have energy left at the end of the afternoon, the ones where your grandchild reaches for your hand on a walk and you can go a little further than you planned. It is never too late to turn in this direction. I have sat with patients at 75 who made these shifts and felt the difference within 2 months. The body is not a machine that wears out and stays worn. It is a living system with a quiet and persistent desire to heal. If you want to begin the 3-part gut restoration that addresses what food changes alone cannot complete, BoochBod is in the description below. The 60-day guarantee means you carry no risk in trying it. Click the link, speak with your doctor, and give your root chamber what it needs to rebuild itself. Until the next time, dear friend, walk gently, eat with care, and trust the old wisdom. It has been watching over us for a very long time.